Google's Bard AI just got a crazy update that's going to make life a lot easier for language learners. And here's why. Back and forth conversations are crucial to language learning. They're unpredictable, dynamic, practice listening and speaking skills, and the best way to prepare for them is to have lots of different conversations about lots of different topics. But this is the hardest thing for language learners to do because conversation practice is not something you can do by yourself easily. You need another person that's patient, available, speaks the language, and can match your level. So many language learners simply ignore conversation practice and never truly learn the language. So are we doomed to always struggle with this aspect of language learning? Maybe not. Conversation practice might have just gotten a whole lot easier. We've seen how tech like ChatGPT and Bing AI can be used for languages, and now Google has released some updates to its own AI, Bard, and this is going to be a big deal for language learners. Here are 3 ways Bard will change how we learn languages, how to get it for yourself, and the critical flaws to watch out for with this AI, starting with this first part. If you were to fire up Bard and type or speak this prompt, this is what would happen. ¿Por qué Superman pierde su fuerza al estar cerca de la kriptonita?
Superman pierde su fuerza al estar cerca de la kriptonita porque la kriptonita es un mineral radiactivo que reacciona negativamente con la fisiología kryptoniana.
In seconds, you'd start a conversation with Bard in the language of your choice, and you'd practice speaking and listening in your target language. So even with no native speaker friends to speak with, you could fire up this AI and practice any topic, anytime, for as long as you want. And you could make as many mistakes in private before going to speak to people in real life. So this first benefit of Bard is critical for language learners. Conversation practice in different languages whenever you want. But a lot of other AI can kind of do this. So what makes Bard unique and special? One of the hardest parts of learning a language is learning how to describe things. Colors, shapes, positioning, textures. It's really hard to describe something physically in another language. My Spanish is pretty good now, and I still struggle with this every day. Bard actually lets you upload images, and then you can ask it to describe the photo and have real conversations about actual things in the picture. Let's try something like this.
Sure, I can describe the image in detail. The image shows a tall building on fire. The building is very tall and has a lot of windows. The flames are very bright and the smoke is thick.
Now, what if we try this?
La imagen muestra un edificio alto en llamas. El edificio es muy alto y tiene muchas ventanas. Las llamas son muy brillantes y el humo es espeso.
Here's another example, but promise you'll use this one responsibly. Imagine I have this vocabulary sheet I'm working on. I could do this. Let's just upload the worksheet here and...
Sure, here is the translation and definition of each word in the image you sent.
Nouns, acción, F, action. Prevención, F, prevention. Tensión arterial, F, blood pressure.
That was pretty solid. This is a real example of something I did just last week while studying new vocab from a Spanish book, so I personally use this and I'm a big fan of learning this way. So uploading and talking about images is one of Bard's unique superpowers. But how much can you trust the things you learned from Bard? Well, try a prompt out like this.
Tanto Barbie como Oppenheimer recibieron críticas positivas de los críticos, pero Oppenheimer tuvo una recepción crítica ligeramente mejor. En Rotten Tomatoes, Barbie tiene una calificación del 90% basada en 299 reseñas, mientras que Oppenheimer tiene una calificación del 94% basada en 245 reseñas.
Yep, Bard is one of the few AI that can access the internet. The other main one is Bing AI that we covered 2 weeks ago on the channel. So that means you can ask Bard questions about real things happening today, and it will look up sources on the internet to give you responses. You could even do something like this. Give me a list of fun activities to do in Mexico City and some Spanish vocabulary for each activity.
Sure, here are some fun activities to do in Mexico City and some Spanish vocabulary for each activity. Visit the pyramids of Teotihuacan. Teotihuacan is an ancient city located about an hour outside of Mexico City. The pyramids are a UNESCO World Heritage Site and one of the most popular tourist attractions in Mexico. Spanish.
Las pirámides de Teotihuacán. Visitar.
So you can ask it for legitimate recommendations for your next trip and prepare some vocabulary when you're traveling. And Bard usually gives you an option to Google search your question when you want to validate that you're getting good information. I don't love this because it makes you hunt around for your own sources rather than just telling you what Bard used in its responses, but this is a start. So Bard's ability to look things up on the internet makes it an awesome language tool. And for getting this far, here's a bonus benefit of Bard that I actually haven't found in other AI. Let's say you just had a great back and forth language conversation with Bard, and you think you finally learned the subjunctive in Spanish. Dime si estoy utilizando correctamente el subjuntivo. No creo que Harry Potter sea el mago más poderoso de todo el mundo.
Sí, Estás utilizando correctamente el subjuntivo. El subjuntivo se usa para expresar duda, probabilidad o posibilidad. En este caso, estás expresando tu duda de que Harry Potter sea el mago más poderoso del mundo.
Ahora dime si estoy utilizando correctamente el subjuntivo. Mañana yo vaya al supermercado.
No, no estás utilizando correctamente el subjuntivo.
What if you turn the conversation into a shareable link, send it to your Spanish teacher, and asked your teacher to go through the conversation dialogue to see if Bard taught you the right things, if the things you said were correct, and to coach you to continue improving your conversation skills based on the chat? This is where human plus machine can create something truly special. Because Bard lets you easily share your chats, your language teachers could plug into this to help you supercharge your language learning. Another example could be that a language teacher has a conversation with Bard in a topic that you like, and they send you a link to that conversation as an example of a good debate between two language experts on a topic you care about. And you could use this as a reading exercise, or the teacher might have you debate with Bard about your favorite Harry Potter movie, and then the teacher uses your shareable link to give you pointers on improving your debate vocabulary. The uses of shareable links to your Bard conversations are endless. This all sounds great, but how do you actually get Bard? And what are its downsides? Well, getting Bard is super easy. Just head to bard.google.com, log in with your Google account, and you're good to go. You click here to type, click here to speak, click here next to any response to have Bard read its response to you out loud,
Sure, I am ready to test my speaking skills.
and click here to share a link to your conversation. Plus, you can see your public links here. Finally, click here and follow this process to change Bard's language. Unfortunately, you'll have to change the language for your entire Google account, so this does get tedious if you want to go back and forth between languages. After Bard responds to you, if you're set to English for now, you may have options to ask it to be more casual, be more professional, or shorter or longer, along with some other options. I wish you could do this before it responds rather than after, but at least they have this feature. Now for the bad news. 1. Image upload is only available in English for now. If you set Google to another language, the upload button might not even show up for you. That means you might have to wait to use the image upload feature depending on the language you're learning, but you might be able to still get some success by keeping Bard set to English and then just asking it to work with your image in another language like we did in the example before. Speaking about languages, the app only lets you set one language at a time. You can't really do something like set your language to English while having Bard respond in Spanish. It just doesn't work well. Let's see how well Bard does when I speak in English, even though my account is set to Spanish. 3. Bard supports a limited number of languages, so depending on the language you're learning, you might have to wait for support to be extended. 4. Of course, like all other AI, Bard sometimes gets information wrong, so take everything with a grain of salt and verify as much as you can online and with language teachers. 5. One of my biggest gripes with Bard is that it's actually really bad at following instructions. It was really hard to get Bard to structure its responses in a specific way that I wanted. I asked it to give me translations and definitions in a specific structure, and it just ignored me. I tried asking it to correct me before continuing the conversation, and it just pretended like it didn't hear me. So some of the cool things that I showed you with ChatGPT or Bing AI, like playing Jeopardy or having the AI correct your grammar mistakes after you say a sentence, those things will be really hard to do in Bard, if at all, and I hope that this improves in the near future. And another very painful con, Bard has no mobile app yet. And if you visit the website on your phone, there's no voice feature on mobile yet. This would be an absolute deal breaker for me, but luckily I found a workaround for ChatGPT Mobile that also works for Bard that I break down in this video. And if you want to skip many of these flaws and keep some of the benefits, I'm actually a bigger fan of Bing AI for language learning right now because it's much better at taking instructions. So you can learn how to use Bing AI for languages in this video, and hasta la próxima.